This is my comparison of the Remarkable tablet and the Supernote. This is the Remarkable 1 and this is the Supernote A5X. But I'm really talking about the whole system of devices. I have used the Remarkable 2, it's an amazing device as well. I haven't used anything but the A5X, but the A6X has the exact same software, as do the two Remarkables, share very similar user experiences. Just remember, in this video I'm comparing the devices and I'm going to compare them in all these different categories, but I'm not comparing the companies. A lot has been said about the customer experience with the Remarkable company versus the Supernote company, and in general it seems that Supernote customer experience seems to be a lot better, although I personally have had a really good customer service experience with the Remarkable. I had a faulty pen initially and they sent me out a replacement within days of me sending the request. Supernote are excellent, they respond well on social media, they really listen to their customers and they feed all that into their research and development. But that being said, Remarkable are very good at developing their software as well. This comparison is going to be based on my real world use as an education professional. I'm not going to get really into the super technical details about the two devices, but I'm just going to give you my opinions based on actually using them for work. And I will say that I'd have absolutely no regrets on buying either. They're both really capable devices. Also to say I'm not affiliated with either brand and they've had no input into this video. If this video seems a bit too longer than you need, then check out my shorter video where I just give my conclusions and advice for choosing each device. Firstly, note making. These devices are designed for this, so you'd expect them to be really good at this, and luckily neither disappoint. They're both designed to replace paper notebooks, but whereas Remarkable feels like it replaced paper and that was good enough, Supernote replaced paper and then really thought hard about what extra features somebody would want in a truly digital notebook. They tried to make it much better than paper. It's all about on this device the searchable key terms and the tables of contents that you can build as you work through a notebook. Just lets you build your notebooks in such a way that you can always find what you want without having to think, well, where did I write that down? All you have to remember is to actually make the notebooks in that way. Remarkable allows you now to use hyperlinks in PDFs, which is excellent for getting around notebooks, but you have to add those into a document before uploading it onto the Remarkable. So you can't add those hyperlinks within the device. And of course, hyperlinks work on the Supernote as well. The way I organize my notes in the Remarkable is to use big bold headings that I can actually see when I look on the page overview. And as long as you use a good clear folder structure, you should be absolutely fine with organization of your files on the Remarkable. Both devices have a great range of features for note making. Most importantly though, they're both great fun for making notes on. But the Supernote just pips it with those extra digital features. Organization. My main reason for using these devices is to replace my paper planner as a teacher. So for keeping organized. I basically have a page for each day and I note down everything I've got to do in that day, at what time of day I've got to do it. So both do that really well. I love the way you can move stuff around. You can move things to different days, or you can make them bigger or smaller if you need a bit more space. And I love the way you can just delete things when they're done. And it really feels like every day you're just working through this to-do list and you're not just crossing it out so it's still there, but you're actually deleting it and clearing things out of your day. You can highlight things, you can use different pens, and that's an excellent thing about digital planning. So Supernote just pips this category because of the things you can actually do on the device. And in the last update, the calendar arrived, and it's a proper digital calendar. It was really easy to sync it with my Gmail or Outlook calendar. So for that reason, for organization, the Supernote is just beating the Remarkable. So on the Remarkable, you're going to be stuck either buying or downloading or making your own paper calendar essentially, which is just digital pages. Productivity and integration. Remarkable's tagline was a place for your thoughts, and I think that's absolutely right. You want these devices to get out of your way. You don't want the digital aspect of these devices to interfere with your thinking. You don't want them constantly bonging and telling you that some app needs updating, or that you've got an email that's just essentially spam. Whilst that's a great and it's a noble aim, and once you embrace it, you're glad that you did. The biggest complaint about the Remarkable, beyond their customer service, is the limitations of the software. You see, minimalism is great until you want a specific feature that it doesn't have, and then it's going to become quite frustrating that it doesn't actually have that feature. There are loads of patches and hacks that you can install onto the Remarkable, but the problem with that is every time Remarkable updates the software, you are going to have to re-upload that patch, that hack, onto the device. And it's going to become a bit of a project that you're keeping this device updated rather than just using it as your notebook to get out of your way. And all of a sudden, working on the software of the device has become a thing all in itself. And all these workarounds are just going to be taking up too much of your time. And that's going to be annoying. So for example, my colleague had got her Remarkable 2 and she was really enjoying it. She loved the experience of using it. But what she really wanted to do was to take notes in meetings and then use the handwriting recognition to insert those into tables in a Word document. The handwriting recognition was great. What she was having to do was email it to herself and then copy and paste sections of the text into the table on the laptop. And it turned out that using the laptop directly in the meeting was an awful lot easier. So she reverted to doing that rather than using the device that she really enjoyed. So Supernote just gets this category because it has those features that professionals will want. So for example, my colleague could have actually inserted text directly into tables in Word documents on this device. There will be a calendar, you can send and receive emails on it, and you can do some basic Office stuff as well. Seems also that they will be bringing more Android apps to the Supernote, so watch this space. I'm hoping that Kindle app is just a start. I would stress though that neither of these devices are really a productivity powerhouse. If you're looking for something like that, then consider getting an iPad. And I've done a comparison of e-ink devices and an iPad just here. Because an iPad will integrate with all your apps. If you use Microsoft Office, then you have all those great Microsoft Office apps on the iPad. But if your workflow will always involve just jotting down ideas on bits of paper, then these can integrate really well into that existing workflow. Both of these devices easily do what I wanted them to do, and that is to replace my paper planner. It's a place for my thoughts, and I have basically unlimited pages. I only really occasionally use those extra features beyond note making. And when I want to be productive, it's always just sat next to me as a place for me to jot down any thoughts and ideas as I work on a more powerful machine. Reading, neither of these are perfect for reading because they are larger and heavier than a Kindle or a Kobo that you might use for reading in bed, and they're not quite big enough for reading academic documents. They're kind of a halfway house. On the Remarkable, you can read PDFs and EPUBs, and that's your lot. If all you're interested was in reading those two types of ebooks, which you can find a lot of free ebooks in those two file formats, then that's perfectly fine. And if you were only going to choose two file formats for ebooks, then it would be PDF or EPUB. But the Supernote gives you so much more. You can read PDFs and EPUBs, but also, of course, Word documents. And if you're a Kindle user, you've got access to your entire Kindle library. And because of that, I think it's only really the Supernote that could replace your dedicated e-reader. Certainly if you did want just one device to replace your notepad and your e-reader, then getting the A6X might be a good choice for you. That's slightly smaller and lighter form factor. And both these devices should really easily replace your e-reader because they have these wonderful A5 sized e-ink screens that are just great for reading on. E-ink is really easy on your eye and you can use it in all different lighting conditions, well, except for completely dark because neither of these devices have actual backlights. As an academic reader, then e-ink tablets are amazing because you can of course annotate directly on your ebook. But the only downside of these two devices is the size. Neither of them are the size of a full A4 sheet of paper, they're half that size. There are some options if you did want a larger device for academic reading. For example, this is the Quirklogic paper. I would suggest if academic reading was really important to you, look at something A4 size. And the A4 size also gives you an option to have a split screen functionality. So you can have a reference text on one side and your notes that you're working on the other side. And that's a really powerful tool. So if you're an academic, I strongly suggest you look at something larger, because when you use a PDF which is designed to be printed at A4 sized, then the print on these things can be quite small, and you don't want to be stuck in a world of zooming in and zooming out as you're trying to read and digest some information. So in one respect these devices aren't big enough, but in another respect they're way too big and heavy. They're much larger and heavier than the smallest Kindle or Kobo devices, so they're not likely to replace your bedtime reader or your beach reader. So the Supernote wins the reading category, but not by much, and it's really because it has that Kindle option. Handwriting. The Remarkable feels great. They really spent a lot of time developing these cardboard nibs and this slightly textured screen to make it really feel like a pencil and paper. Scribbling on this device is just so, and the tools that they've developed are excellent as well. They give you pressure and tilt for the pencil tool, and they even have a calligraphy brush as well. Most people, I think, will be most satisfied with either the ballpoint or the mechanical pencil for handwriting. The accuracy of the stylus, the speed of the stylus is second to none. It's perfect. It's just as it would feel as handwriting on paper. It's the best until you try the Supernote. I do not have the world's most accurate handwriting, but for some reason when I pick up this wonderfully weighted heart of metal pen and I put this fine ceramic nib, which you never need to change by the way, onto this restorative film, and I can just write really neat script almost every time. It is really nice. But there are only two pen types, and I only ever use one, which is the pressure sensitive one. But these tools are good, they are fine, and they're very customizable in themselves. Supernote does plan to bring more updates and more different pen tools in future updates, but I think it's just that extra resistance of the restorative film which makes me able to write really neatly on it. And there's something addictive about writing on it. I just want to pick this device up and make notes. It's also pretty accurate near the edge, which is something that the Remarkable has a bit of an issue with, the pen accuracy towards the edge of the screen. So the Supernote wins it for handwriting. So the OCR, the optical character recognition, the handwriting recognition. I'm mega impressed by the handwriting recognition on both of these devices, and both seem to be able to get my writing every time as long as I just take a little bit of care over the characters and not to scribble. Both prefer if you print, so you don't join up your letters, and both take just a little bit of time to actually do the handwriting recognition. The Supernote uses the handwriting recognition technology more widely in the device, in those searchable keywords, Word documents and emails. And it's also easy to edit and work with the text afterwards on the Supernote. Whereas the Remarkable is really just convert the text and email it to yourself. But it's just that the Remarkable is slightly more accurate, slightly more often, and it's going to win this category. For drawing, I've made a few videos about actually drawing on the Remarkable, and I really love it. They've just got the tools right, especially that pencil tool. The feel of the marker on the screen is so like pencil and paper that it's just a really natural feeling if you're actually used to drawing with pencil on paper. Remarkable uses the tilt function as well, so you can get a really nice variation in shading, which the Supernote doesn't. It's also great that you can export as a vector file and work with it on the computer afterwards. Supernote is pretty limited on drawing because there's only those two pen types. There's only a pressure sensitive one and a non-pressure sensitive one. And that's okay for drawing. You can vary tone, etc. of the ink, but there's little in the way of artistic features. Coupled with the feel of the stylus being much more like a ballpoint pen, it just really doesn't feel inviting to sketch on. You can certainly draw on it and you can produce really good things, but it loses out to the Remarkable, which is quite a refined experience for artists really. So I've talked a little bit about the feel of the two screens, and it might surprise you that they're so different because essentially the e-ink screen underneath the top layer is basically the same. But they do feel worlds apart. It's all about the combination of that top layer and the nib of the stylus that you're using. Remarkable has this sort of abrasive top layer and a cardboard nib in the stylus. It does give just that right amount of friction to make it feel like a pencil on cartridge paper. The Supernote has this slightly soft film, which the ceramic nib actually indents as you write, and then it regenerates and it's back to perfectly smooth again. It really feels like you're pressing a pen into paper. It's a tie for me because they're so different. I like them both, but for different reasons. The Remarkable for that sketchy feel, and the Supernote for that quality pen and paper feel. So which that you're going to like is just going to come down to personal preference. Teaching and presenting is not a strength for either of these devices. Neither have a direct wired or wireless connection to a display, so you can't just share this screen at the front of a classroom or via live internet teaching. The Remarkable can share a screen, but only to a computer with the app installed, logged into the same account on the same Wi-Fi network. So it's reasonably limited in that respect. There's no way to share and collaborate with other users and other documents on different devices. So actual real-time use for teaching is pretty limited. I use it for my teaching just as my classroom notes. Currently, Supernote has no way to actually share the screen, but it is in their roadmap of features to develop and introduce on the device. But if you are interested in these features, then I suggest you check out the Quirklogic paper, which is all about collaboration in real time around ideas, and that lends itself so well to education. And of course, you can use the split screen function, and you'd have maybe your lesson notes on this side and the screen that the students could see and collaborate with on this side. But in this comparison, I've got to give this category to the Remarkable, since it does have that screen share option right now. So lastly, it's the price, and both are too expensive, I'm afraid. But unfortunately, that's just where this technology is at right now. E-ink screens of this size are just not made in high enough volumes for them to be cheap at this point. And this is going to hold the market back until that's solved, because most of the money that you're paying for this device goes into buying that large A5 e-ink screen. And it means that very little money actually goes into the computing parts. So if you're to read a spec sheet on either of these two devices, you'll be very underwhelmed by the actual computing specifications. On paper, they read like tablets of maybe 10 years ago. But that's okay, because you shouldn't really be comparing these tablets, these devices, to other tablets and iPads and phones, because you won't be using them for any photo editing or multimedia use in any case. It just doesn't need the same specifications as an ordinary tablet or phone. You won't be playing games or video editing on them. But if you are going to pick one of these two devices, you're going to pick them because of how they're going to integrate into your workflow. You need to know that they are going to work in your workflow before you shell out that price for them. In any case, the thing about that price is that the companies know that they need to produce a really premium, high build quality device for somebody to spend that amount on it. And they really have in both these cases. The build quality and design of them is just superb. So it's a tie. They're both expensive, but understandably so. Conclusion. My comparison comes out at 5-3 in favour of the Supernote. Long story short, sketchers by the Remarkable, writers by the Supernote. So which are you going to buy? Based on the advice I've given you today, or because of other things you've heard about the two devices, which device are you going to buy? Leave that in the comment below. I didn't really mention build quality or design because they're both superlative. And I didn't really talk about the battery life because they should both last for a week, which is good enough for me. I didn't mention accessories as well because they both have a great range, from premium accessories to the less expensive accessories. But for me, I think it's fair to say that the Supernote is the better device, but I think there's still plenty of reasons why you would buy the Remarkable. And I really hope this video helped you make the choice. If you're interested in some other videos on these two devices, then check out these ones here. And please remember, the best way to say thanks is to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and to maybe leave a comment. And all of that is absolutely free.